Hi Scott, how you going? Thanks for coming in today. I thought we'd talk about WeChat. WeChat's been so popular in the press last week for the second week of the social media campaign. And we know that so many different platforms are working on social media this election for both the opposition leader and the Prime Minister. So I thought we'd get you in to talk about WeChat. You are the resident expert. You recently used it in your Kogarah election for the New South Wales state election. What can you tell us about WeChat and what do you think we'll see from the political leaders this election?
Well, Carrington, great to be here today. Thank you so much for the opportunity. WeChat's just like Facebook, Instagram and Twitter. It's a new platform where you can tap into a whole block of voters, and with over 1 million Chinese background people here in Australia, I could share with you the size of WeChat. I mean, 9 out of 10 of my friends use WeChat.
Wow.
And that would translate to a lot of voters, and I think it's an absolute critical source of communication. So absolutely expect Scott Morrison and Bill Shorten and their MPs and their candidates to be tapping into WeChat.
So we know that they're both using it at the moment. Would you say that they're using it for directly engaging with the audience on WeChat, or are they just sort of repurposing the existing creative assets that they've done on other social platforms?
Well, undoubtedly, I think their goal is to engage voters on WeChat. I think, are they really being nation specific? I mean, a little bit in terms of their analysis, in terms of what really links to the main target market of WeChat, which are Chinese Australian voters. So those include the economy, those include immigration. So they are targeting a little bit like that. I don't think it varies too much from the mainstream though.
Okay, cool. So do you think what they will present on WeChat, do you think it will really shift Chinese Australian voters on certain particular issues? Like, what issues are you seeing, and do you think whatever the leaders put on WeChat they'll engage with?
Absolutely. I mean, it would absolutely shift it. I mean, at the end of the day, you're going to vote for a party because you trust them. You're going to vote for someone because you trust them. So whether it's Scott Morrison's personal WeChat account or the opposition leader's personal WeChat account or one of their candidates, I mean, the more you put out there that reveals about what your policies are and who you are as a person, that's going to increase the chances of helping the voter make up their mind.
And what issues have you seen them cover on WeChat specifically, any in particular?
I mean, there's a ranging plethora of issues, and those come down to a lot centralised around marginal seats with high Chinese background voters.
But what issues do you think matter to them? Like, what specific policy areas would you say this election?
Well, I think it comes down to the economy has been very, very important to Chinese background voters. A lot of people have gone out there and started their own businesses. They've gone out there owning investment properties as well. So when it comes to superannuation, when it comes to negative gearing, when it comes down to the strength of the economy in general, that consumer confidence, that's important to a lot of voters. And I think especially and I'm not categorising one group of voters, all of them together as Chinese Australian voters, valuing economy is the number one thing, but it is very important.
Okay, so do you think, what particular areas, electorates, would you say would be the focus for them to focus on WeChat? Which areas, which electorates can you say WeChat's heavily used?
Well, absolutely. I mean, you've got to look at seats such as Banks, you've got to look at seats such as Reid, seats such as Bennelong as well. So those are the ones in New South Wales, and I'm sure Gladys Liu and the Labor candidate down in Chisholm would be actively using WeChat. I hope they will anyway.
Yeah, cool. I've also seen this weekend Sam Crosby has as well. He's the Labor candidate for Reid. So it's interesting to see that he is getting on there as well. And Labor has created 2 different accounts for WeChat, and we've got one with Scott Morrison so far. It would be great to see more candidates on there, I imagine. How hard is it to use? Is it hard to use?
It's fairly simple, Carrington.
You don't have to speak Chinese, do you?
You don't have to speak Chinese, and as I shared with you the other day, I mean, we played with it on the phone. You could log on, you could even, if someone even sends you a message in Chinese, you can translate that.
That's fantastic.
There's an automatic translate button.
There you go.
And it might not be the perfect translation, but
it's still pretty good to make sense of.
That's right, absolutely.
So, what would you say the chatter has been about currently on there? Have you seen anything of interest that's sort of peaking on there?
Yeah, obviously candidates are sending out their own material as well, as we have seen from the Prime Minister and the opposition leader. They're sharing their articles. The biggest challenge, I think, facing all candidates and MPs and the leader and the opposition leader is how engaging that content is and how much it translates to viewership. So one of the challenges I imagine that both the Prime Minister and the opposition leader is facing when you log on, there's not that many views. I mean, when you're having 24, 25, 26 million Australians here, I mean, not everyone's a voter.
And of that 26 million, there's about 1 million Chinese Australians here. What percentage of that million would you say are using WeChat?
You know what, off the top of my head, I don't know the exact same stat, but I reckon a good 80-90% would be on WeChat.
You're kidding? That's quite a lot.
Absolutely.
And so, do you think that certain issues like Huawei would be in discussion on WeChat? Things around Huawei, without going into detail, but do you think people are discussing those sorts of Chinese issues on
everything from Huawei to government policies?
You don't think there's a specific issue that's sort of generating more chatter than others?
Absolutely. So there are some issues that are more topical than others. I think it aligns basically to the area. So if you're looking at a certain area, that MP or that candidate is pushing out their materials, and obviously that material gets shared a little bit. But from what I've seen, I think all candidates across the spectrum could be a little bit more aggressive with WeChat.
Okay, great, good to know. So really it's like the other platforms like Facebook and Twitter. They really need to engage, and they need to engage with that specific audience, probably with original content, not just necessarily repurposing the same video across all platforms. I mean, I'm asking you because I'm thinking, would it help to basically have original, bespoke and creative content specifically designed for WeChat as opposed to just putting the same bit of messaging out across all channels?
Undoubtedly. I mean, we revolutionised, our team headed up by my good friend Andy Wong, revolutionised
your campaign at the election.
Yes, so Andy basically came up to me and says, we got to do something different. And me erring on the side of caution, I said, Andy, are you sure? And what he did with his team was basically illustrated WeChat in a way that was appealing, captivating through use of videos, GIFs, photos, and also incorporated content, as you shared, a little bit more exciting, a little bit more about the candidate. What does he do at 6 a.m? What does he do at 8 a.m? Something more engaging, something more exciting. I mean, policies are certainly very, very important. People want to read about that, but people want to know about the person.
Excellent. And so what did you generate? How many thousands of stories did you generate?
We generated 4 articles, and each articles range from somewhere between 10,000 views to over 30,000 views.
Yeah.
I mean, our team, again, as I said, and thanks to Andy Wong, got celebrities in China to give us endorsements. But we focused on general content, so you don't need celebrities, right? You focus on the general content, which is, what's your favourite food? Why are you in politics? Talk about some of the people in your team. Who want to know about your team? Who want to know the people that are behind it, driving the cause? I think people are interested in that. And last but not least, the distribution content. So distributing that content is very, very critical to how many people read.
Resourcing and people, clusters of people within the app itself. Thanks for coming in today, Scott. It was really great to get your views on WeChat, and it will be interesting to see how this plays out over the next 3 weeks of the election.
Carrington, thanks for the opportunity. You're a rock star. Thank you.
You're welcome. Cheers.